So just to drill into that a little bit, I used to work at Symantec. I've been in the security industry pretty much my whole career, back in the UK and obviously here. And it took me a while to really understand what a security incident is. Even at Symantec, everyone's always talking about the latest malware and the zero-day malware and security attacks and data breaches. But it took me a while to realise it was actually through conversations with various organisations, and I would get into a conversation about, let's say, antivirus or stopping malware, and really drilling into that, asking about, well, what's the purpose behind the malware? Like, what do you think they're trying to achieve, and what are they trying to do? And coming through that conversation, asking questions about, well, what are they actually trying to steal? And then in a couple of sort of penny drop moments with some of these customers, realizing, and as they sort of come to realize, it's about stealing data, right? So cybersecurity, the whole purpose of cybersecurity, malware, attackers, whether they're insiders or external threat actors, is really to steal your data, the data either within your organization or your personal data, and what that really comes down to, more often than not, is files and folders, right? So I guess my journey through the security industry, coming from companies like Symantec, and before that I was with an email security company called Minecraft, coming to where I am now with Varonis, it's been a really interesting journey, as Varonis is entirely focused around data, files and folders, specifically unstructured data, which really is the subject of all cyber attacks. So that's kind of the context I want to kind of go through with you guys, and I can get into a bit of detail. So in terms of the data itself, where is the data? Where are these files and folders within your organization? These are the most common sorts of unstructured data repositories that organizations use, and even the private individuals use. By the way, with Varonis, technically any unstructured data repository is supported. These are the most common, and I'm sure you can think of within your organizations where you have, specifically where you have data. In terms of why an organization would look at something like Varonis, which is a software platform to secure data, taking it right back to the beginning, the first thing you need to understand as an organization in protecting your data is where it is, right? So where is the sensitive data? In which files, in which folders? Not all files are created equal. In fact, Ricoh often says in meetings we do together that there's a difference between the receptionist passing around a file that is the Christmas party invite list versus a file that contains everyone's PII, 10,000 credit card numbers, and something sensitive for your organization. So not all files are created equal. Some are more valuable than others. So obviously understanding where the data is. And then the most basic of all controls, access. In this world of cybersecurity nowadays, people forget the most basic principles still apply. If you can restrict access appropriately to the data of value, and obviously in order to get there, understanding who has access in the first place, who has legitimate access out of Active Directory groups through the permissions in the file systems, who has access, and how do you reduce it? This kind of plays into detecting a data breach, because the first thing you want to know, if there's been a security incident, if data has been stolen or lost or removed or something's happened to your valuable data, well, who did what? What did the account that was compromised, what did they last do? What files did they last touch? What folders were they last interacting with? I mean, what does that account actually have access to in the first place? Can you detect that? And it would be helpful to get alerts on that, proactive, real-time, hey look, this account's behaving unusually, it's just touched your most sensitive files, and it's just done something really weird and downloaded them, and then we've seen them on uploading things onto Dropbox or whatever, right? And then with regulations, I was saying earlier that Australia's, in line with what Andrew was saying, Australia's a little bit behind the times in terms of maturity with data security regulations around the world. The US and the UK and Europe are probably a bit ahead, but certainly what we're seeing in Australia at the moment is a focus on these regulations from the government and local government in terms of how organisations have to handle specific types of data. And again, the same questions apply if you're going to become compliant with any of these sorts of regulations. You know, where is it? Where is the regulatory data? Who has access legitimately? Can you prove that you're restricting access appropriately, that it's being used in the right way? So, Varonis, as I said, is a software platform. It's one code base, no acquisitions. I skipped a slide earlier, but Varonis is well established in the US and the UK. It's on the NASDAQ. It's been around for since 2005. But really in Australia right now, we're in start-up mode sort of thing. Because really of the level of maturity, it's just starting to get attention, the data itself. So at a very high level how this works, before we go into any demo slides, the software integrates with the repositories itself, so the file servers, Windows on-premise, Office 365, SharePoint Online, wherever the files are, and it pulls logs and telemetry out of the file server itself. We do not turn on native file server auditing because that will break your server, it will blue screen. And Microsoft themselves say in big red letters, do not do that. But we're scraping the metadata and the telemetry. We're also pulling information out of Active Directory, whether that's Azure AD, on-prem AD, or whatever the LDAP identity store may be. And also consuming and including telemetry from perimeter devices, edge services, things like proxies, VPN, DNS, that are critical in understanding an account's activity. What we do with this information in the cog in the middle here, we basically map out the information landscape. So we're literally identifying content, specific content within files, whether that's PCI, credit card numbers, PII, like personally identifiable information, health information. I know a number of you guys work for health organisations, and I was saying to Michael earlier, health information, PHI, personal health information, is incredibly sensitive and valuable data that, by the way, is a focus of a cyber criminal. So identifying the content. The other aspect of this, in attributing value to files appropriately, it's important to understand who uses and who creates those files. And so this is one thing we get out of Active Directory, looking at who's who. We're able to identify privileged users, so the C-level, the CEO, CIO, CFO. If it's those people that are interacting and using these files, that contributes to the evaluation of the value of that file, as well as the content itself. That comes into it. What we're essentially doing is mapping the users and groups from Active Directory through the file systems and the permissions to see who has access to what. And then, through collection of the access activity, so every single file touch, we're collecting all the metadata and analysing it, with the telemetry from Active Directory and the perimeter devices, we're able to do two critical things with this software that are valuable business outcomes for you. One is, through a period of analysis, we're able to identify who legitimately needs access to this data and who doesn't. And then we're able to commit those changes into Active Directory automatically. So where we've identified excessive permissions on files and folders that contain sensitive data, we're able to create a new group in Active Directory automatically using your naming conventions, add only the minimum required users into that group, and then kill and remove the legacy groups completely. And so what we're trying to do is enable you to get to the principle of least privilege on your files and folders, where the least amount of people have access that actually need it. We're not trying to stop people's ability to do their jobs or stop a service account that legitimately needs read-write access, but moving you automatically to have the minimum amount of access that you need, and that's best practice security. The second thing we do with this, through user behavior analytics, again, over a period of time, we're able to baseline normal activity and normal behavior for every single account. And then, once we've accurately identified that, so for example, we know what device Andrew normally uses, we know what times of day Andrew normally operates from, where from geographically, what he normally does, what his patterns of behavior look like, and what's legitimate for Andrew. If we suddenly see Andrew's account logging in from China at 4 o'clock in the morning on a device he's never used before, touching very sensitive data that he doesn't normally touch, that's a potential security incident right there. And so with this software, we're able to automatically alert you as a security team, an IT team, a management team, automatically alert you in real time to any deviations of normal behavior within your organization. Okay?